All right, this is how to make the world's easiest pumpkin pie. It's an easy crust and an easy filling. Add 1 cup of flour to a mixing bowl, then to that add half a teaspoon of salt and mix that all together. Then you're gonna take 1 stick of butter. That's a half cup of butter or 114 grams. Cut it up into cubes and melt it. I used the microwave for this. This melted butter is going to give the crust that traditional buttery flavor. In theory, this won't give you as flaky of a pie crust as a traditional one, but it gets really close. And the main benefit of this melted butter pie crust is you're gonna get a really easy to handle pie crust that you can actually press right into the pie pan. So stir all of that butter into the flour mixture, and you should get a consistency that's like really wet sand. It's not gonna feel like sand, but it's just really kind of wet. Then we're gonna make it even wetter by adding in a couple tablespoons of water, 1 to 2 tablespoons, just one at a time. You just wanna get a nice wet consistency in this dough because you are gonna be pressing that into your pan. The final consistency should look something like this. Then pop that into your pie pan, just put it directly in. I think I'm using a cake pan actually, but no big deal. Then get your fingertips a little bit moist with some water because you're going to be pressing this down into your pan and you don't want that dough to be sticking to your fingers. A little moisture goes a long way. Yeah, I said it, moist. Then press the dough as evenly as you can in the bottom of the pan, and then you're going to move your way up the top of the pan, creating the crust. Well, I guess it's all the crust, but you're going to be making that top crust edge. Now this is going to make the bottom of the crust a little bit uneven, but that's okay. You just want to build the side of your pie with your thumbs. Keep pressing around until you build the pie about 1.5 inches high. And once you've got the edge of your crust all figured out, you're going to even out the bottom of the pie, which is a little bit uneven. You can see some parts that you can almost see through the crust. So you're going to distribute the crust throughout the bottom of the pan as evenly as you can with your fingertips. And your finger flats, the flat part of your fingers, whatever that's called. And once the bottom of your crust is good to go, just flatten the top of the crust so there isn't that big edge at the top. If you like that edge, you can keep it, but I'm choosing to flatten it out and just press it against the pan. That's gonna give me a little extra height on the pie as well. And that's probably the easiest pie crust you'll ever make. Now for the super easy filling, you're gonna get 1 can of pumpkin, 1 can of sweetened condensed milk, 2 eggs, and then a little bit of pumpkin pie spice. If you don't have any of that, you can just use cinnamon, it'll turn out fine. Then the last ingredient you'll need is a little pinch of salt. That'll just wake all the flavors up, and that's what most pie fillings leave out. You're welcome. Add those 2 eggs to a mixing bowl, and then to the eggs, add your 1 can of sweetened condensed milk. By the way, this recipe will be in the description so you can see the exact amounts I'm using in case your can is bigger or smaller than mine. Sweetened condensed milk is like milk mixed with sugar. So we've got our sugar element and our dairy element into this pie with 1 simple ingredient. Next, mix the eggs into the sweetened condensed milk. Make sure you mix these really well. You really can't overmix it. You want to make sure you get rid of all of those streaks of egg. You do not want those showing up in the final pie. Then add your whole can of pumpkin puree. It's gotta be Libby's or any other brand of pumpkin puree. Really, anyone you want to use is fine. Then, like I said before, we're gonna add some pumpkin pie spice, just half a teaspoon, and you can use cinnamon as a substitute if you want. I use a little bit less spice than other recipes call for because I like to feature the pumpkin and not the spice. But if you're a PSL person, you can add a whole teaspoon of the spice and you'll get a little bit of extra spicy goodness. Just keep stirring until everything is fully combined. There's no flour in here, so you don't have to worry about overmixing. Then pour this all into your pie shell, making sure that you don't pour it over the top of the crust. If for some reason you've got a lower crust, you don't have to use all of the filling, but this amount of filling fit just about perfectly into my pie. Then just give your pie a few shakes and a few taps. That gets rid of any bubbles that are caught in the filling, and then move this into your preheated oven, which has been preheated to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. You'll start by baking this for 15 minutes at 425. 15 minutes later, you can already tell that the pie is starting to set. Just look at that. And then you're actually going to change the temperature of your oven to 350 degrees, and you're going to continue baking for about 25 minutes, let's say 25 to 30 minutes, just to be safe. Then 25 minutes later, my pie was puffing up a little bit. That'll sink back down as the pie cools. And as you can see, I shake the pie and it is fully set. So I'm going to transfer that to a cooling rack, and I'm going to let it cool down until it is just about room temperature. Takes about an hour. But first I'm going to run my little pie triangle scooper along the edge of the pie just to kind of loosen it from the sides of the pie pan. I find that if I do this now while the pie is warm, it'll be easier to get out of the pan later on when the pie is cool. So just work your way around the edges of the pie, loosening it from the sides of the pan, and then you can let your pie cool down to room temperature. Before serving, just slice it up directly in the pie pan, then plate up the pie and top it with the only thing you can top pumpkin pie with, whipped cream, and enjoy. When I made this for the first time, I was actually super shocked how good this simple pie recipe turned out. It tastes as good as any pumpkin pie I've ever had. Even though the crust breaks from tradition in using melted butter, it is still really flaky. The crust does a great job of being flaky, but holding together on your fork and then just falling apart when you bite into it. So I love the crust. And the filling, although it's really simple and uses some sweetened condensed milk, it just tastes amazing. It tastes like how pumpkin pie should taste. So even if you never bake pie, even if you never bake anything, go ahead and give this recipe a try. You will not regret it. And if you're interested in baking bread, check out this recipe up top. Sad pie.